Hey, yeah, a little bit of the Stones, baby. A little stick of your fingers. I remember it well when it came out, and I'm still digging it to this day. So, hope you are too. Can't you hear me knocking? Bum, ba, bum, bum. How are y'all doing? So, yeah, I expect this one to be a pretty lively discussion, no doubt. Let me make sure I got all of the buttons right. There we go. And let me get myself. Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful spirit, man. Yeah. So, hello, everybody. Hey, Mad Hatter. What's up? Susie Q, Nina the Mystic, Grandpa Brian, how and Lighten Frog. Welcome. I have not seen you before. So, welcome. Hey, Scotty Boy, Bernadette. What's up? Chloe, greetings. So, Lost in Space, what's up? Hey, Annie. Good to see you, Bernadette, as well. Truth Seeker. Hey, Ginger and David Castle and Big Al is in the room. I'm sure Perry's there. Hey, David Barry, what's up, brother? Good to see you. And Morgan. So, Mad Cow Perkins, what's up? So, good to hear that, Susie Q. Glad to hear that. Elderberry, how you doing? I think I saw Max Vision in here earlier. Serpent of Sophia. Now, I like that. That's a great handle. Xandor, how are you? And Jossie, good to see you. Kent Cook, good to see you. Divine Empress, welcome. B3 and Crystal Shaman, welcome. Favor, speak it over us all. Loretta is well. Boy, I mean, the room is filling up. Listen, I knew the title was going to generate a certain reaction. But heck, you know, when was that a bad thing, right? So happy birthday if you're having one. Good to have you around a little bit longer. And Bosto be to all of us. We are service to one of another, and that's how it is. Hello, Heidi and Martin. Good to see you. Yeah. So I did see Marsha has these beautiful Zen boxes, and y'all have to get them, check it out. Check it out on our Facebook page. Her link is in there. And by all means, definitely do it. I think Nina has a hump day show today and as well. And her link down there and along with David Barry and the Soul Tribe gear, and the cards are out and we're going to be promoting those. So the tribe is coming together. Indeed, indeed, indeed. So this is a topic that I have dealt into for, I guess, well over 30 years. It's always been a little, how should we say, weird is not the right word. Unbalanced. I think that's a better word. Unbalanced. And the thing about it is that today we have this connotation of the image of what gay is. Now, when I was growing up, gay meant happy. I mean, it did. Um, Never really thought about, being gay, but um, it's a taboo subject. But yet, uh, it is it is so connected to humanity and what we are, who we are. And it's interesting in my studies, and how I came upon this was more in my studies of angelic beings. Um, this guy, I mean, I don't agree with his theology, but I like his work. Stephen Quayle is probably, he has done a great deal of research on this. And like I said, you have to be able to be balanced enough. He wrote another one, Aliens and the Fallen Angels. We're going to talk about that. He wrote this book. This is a really interesting book. This is Exogenesis. Why is this all this related? And of course, the pile of other books I have, Gustav Davidson, his Dictionary of Angels. And if you study this enough, you you begin to find out that there's something going on here. The feminine, the female, is virtually absent where you're dealing with angels and demons. And you got to step back and go, well, what's going on? Now, I really thought about this at length, and I think we just have to be real honest with ourselves and how we see and project ourselves in this image of sexuality and religion. Whether you're, heterosexual, homosexual, non-sexual, non-binary, it identifies who and what we are. And today, because of the repression that has been put upon us falsely for the last, good 2,000 years, we have this imbalance of human sexuality and religion. And when you strip away all the dogmas, and all the theologies and the ideologies and really get down to brass tacks. In other words, you're looking at your ass is what you're doing, because you've got to see the picture from the back end. The interesting thing about human beings is that we never see our ass end. We see the ass end of everybody else, but we don't see our ass end, which limits our perspective to merely a one-dimensional point of view. That's my commentary. So I did a little PowerPoint presentation. Let me pull it up. And I think that this, if you're mature, intelligent, open-minded, non-religious, then you're going to love this. If you're the opposite of that, you're probably going to find this a little painful. But I applaud you for your fortitude. So, could God be gay? Well, let's just take a look at this. So, in the beginning is what we are told. Well, the only thing that you can come up with is that this is male. Well, how could that be? Well, we know by the image, and we're going to get into that. But if you're of the point of view that, well, God is both male and female. Oh, so now you're really getting into some weird sexuality here, because if you say God is both sexes, that makes him a hermaphrodite. And God's true nature would be a hermaphrodite. Now, hermaphrodite means a person or animal having both male and female sex organs or other sexual characteristics. Into this interesting, other sexual characteristics, very important, either abnormally or as the natural condition. Now, if you read the book, I've already had to kick out 2 people, but it's interesting if they would have just not been trying to proselytize, but here to really seek knowledge. And, even if you believe in something, it's not a bad thing to have that belief assaulted. Remember, never buy your own shit. But anyway, so it says that he or they, apparently there was more than one, but apparently all male, created man in their image. The reality and the truth of the situation, if you follow the Abrahamic belief systems, and let me tell you, they have ties into the, Epic of Gilgamesh, going all the way back to the Sumerians and the Indus Valley. This goes way back. The female was literally taken out of the male, or so the story goes. So that directly implies that Adam was in fact a hermaphrodite created in God's image. It's the only way that he could have been. Now, I know people go to me and say, well, you got Genesis 1:26. Genesis 1:26 is not what happened in Genesis 2:7 and 9. We're talking about what happened to this thing that was created that we call Adam, that they say where we came from. And you know what? If that's the case, if we're Adamites, we're incestual beings. Literally. Incest. But if you go by the story, Adam was a hermaphrodite. So let's just go and look at this. So angels are all male or hermaphrodites. The male is always the lead character. The male is the only one who could speak to God. That's weird. God prefers to only speak to males. God cursed the female twice. He didn't curse the man. He cursed the ground. He cursed the woman, the female. What did he do? I mean, talk about a curse. You'll have a flow of blood, and your birth pangs shall be painful. Yeah, way to go. The Nephilim were all males. We're going to get into this because this is actually a two-parter here because it does have a lot to do with the Nephilims. So the fallen angels were all male. All prophets are males. Now, I put an asterisk by that because in the Old Testament, there were a couple of prophetesses. Yes, Diana was one, and there was another. Her name escapes me, but they were minor to the minor prophets. Isn't it interesting? All demons are, for the most part, male. It seems the archons are all male. Now, if you're saying that none of these spirits have sex, well, who the hell do you think taught humanity? Old Testament, New Testament, only written by males. In fact, Paul was so monogamous in his view towards women, he found women to be virtually disgusting. And if you don't believe me, just read Corinthians, read his writings. Women are subjugated to a subservient position of a servant, nothing more. Again, women are subservient to males. Only the male high priest could enter the inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies. No woman was allowed even in the temple in the inner, behind the showbread, the veil. Male animals are used primarily in the sacrificing to God. Now, if you just look at these points, all right, so what's going on here? There seems to be, what are you saying, that males don't mean that you have a penis? Because if you don't have a penis, then you ain't a male. You can be androgynous, you can be anything else, but if you're going to call or make a reference to either a god, a deity, a savior, a demon, an angel, they got to have something hanging down in the junk box. That's all I'm saying. So Adam, here's proof that he was, in fact, a hermaphrodite. Because from Adam came the eggs, the sperm, the womb, all taken from the Adama. And makes it even weird because he was inseminated into an outside life form. You see, if the creating of Eve or the female is what it was, it's foreign. It's an alien. Now, we can get into the story about the rib being taken out. Listen, I'm talking about what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with genetics because here the female was the first mingled seed. That's incredibly important. The Adam was altered, made different, and was not the original. Once the Adama was put down, by the geneticists, by the story, I'm just going by the story now. Don't yell at me and don't send me nasty emails. I'm going by the story in the book of Genesis. And, we're taken, from the rest of the ancient documents. So by all descriptions of the Genesis 2, 7, and 9 Adama, they altered him. He was supposed to be self-creating, self-producing. Apparently it didn't work out. So let's talk about Jesus and Satan being gay. Oh, I know they're going to just, going off the planet. But before you go batshit crazy, get your panties in a wad, settle down. I'm going to show you something. So Jesus only hung out with men. Yes, I know he had Mary and Martha and Lazarus. And he had, they said, a group of women who tended to the needs of himself and his male group. Here's the thing. Jesus never condemned homosexuality. Never. I challenge anyone who's, uptight about this, go and look in your New Testament. Look in the 4 Gospels. Jesus never condemned homosexuality. And it seems that Jesus and Satan both seem to prefer males. Even in Satan's kingdom, which, by the way, is made up just like the Jesus one is, but never doesn't matter, there seems to be a prevalence that homosexuality, gayness, dominates both kingdoms. Even in the afterlife, it appears to be mostly male in its construct, in the power structure. The Holy Trinity is only male. Forget the gentleman, Mr. Lean, I think it was, who wrote, look at the very beginning of the chat. There is no feminine represented in the Trinity. It was put there because we find it so reprehensible in one way. What do you mean? Again, the female pushed aside. Heaven has no females on the throne, neither does hell. Females, according to the covenant, are not heirs to the covenant. Only males. Only males are popes, bishops, and cardinals. Females have no part in the power structure of the church or of Jesus Christ. None. Now, if this isn't gay, I don't know what is. I mean, it meets the definition of what gayness is, preferring the company of males. As I said, what does Jesus say about homosexuality? Absolutely nothing. Get the book by Bishop Gene Robinson, God Believes in Love. You see, if 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8 doesn't apply, then the whole goddamn book doesn't apply. But let's talk about this, because even in alchemy, in the highest parts of alchemy, hermaphrodites is something very special because it is where we came from. It is, in fact, by all evidence, our origins. And if you look at this through the symbology, we know that they were trying, the alchemists, the witches, the wizards, they were trying to tell us something. But you see, this is the occult. This is the hidden knowledge. It's radical. Because remember, there is no sexual sin. None. There is no sin. I didn't say that. The book does. In fact, the Apostle Paul said, all things are permissible to me, just not all things are profitable to me. But if we begin to understand the origin of how the separation took place, it was more than just the physiology, the physicality of it. We're not talking just about the genitalia here. This is something that goes down into our souls, our spirits. And it's never reflected in its true nature of what image we were in fact created in. And if you study this, even within the elementals, they bear witness to this. The Liber Lilith, she taught us this. The Endogen, true man, true woman. They were one. The separation was the first move against us. But throughout the occult, throughout alchemists that you study, the symbolism is there. The truth is there. The tree of life is, in fact, the androgynous Adama. As much female as much male. And I'm showing you these because these are the secrets. This is the hidden knowledge. And it begins to make a little bit more sense when you begin to realize that the connotation of being gay or straight is absolutely meaningless, because they're both the same. And if it's difficult for you to grasp this concept, well, I can dig that. Know exactly what you're dealing with. But even in the tarot, I saw Jenny in here as well, and Nina. I mean, so if you look at, depending what cards you use, isn't it interesting that the devil is a hermaphrodite? Maybe Lucifer knows something, huh? And again, these are the elemental. Study them, learn them, and you're going to be in that center point, that perfect balance, where both the horizontal and the vertical are equally balanced by each other. This is God. If the Creator exists, which I do believe, then it can only be one thing. Even the Chinese cultures. Have you seen the separation here? It's everywhere if you look. This may be the ultimate destiny of our species. Who knows? But again, this is so foreign to the mainstream average person. This is beyond their ability to comprehend, much less apprehend. But it's true. The struggle that we find within ourselves is represented by what the only thing of what you could say by the definition, God would be gay. He would be homosexual. He would be, multisexual. But we don't like to talk about our gods in such manners, because why? Well, that's just not appropriate. And I know that this is a difficult concept. But I challenge you now. I know religious indoctrination. Don't write to me. I can quote scripture better than you can. I don't need to hear it. What you need to hear is this. You need to begin to understand that if humanity, we don't know who and what humanity is. The perverseness of what our indoctrination by our handlers, our controllers, the masters, has so polluted the inner view of what we are. We view male, female, and we view that if it's male, male, female, female, that somehow that's inverted. It's natural. I mean, you can't say that being heterosexual is the only way God would accept any human being. I mean, talk about bigoted. I mean, that's so one-dimensional. I'm just reading some of it down here. You see, even mature adults, those that are in their 60s and 70s, can't handle this. And maybe the youth, if they're allowed to be made known of the knowledge, very well may rewrite religion and set the balances back into balance, because right now we are out of balance. You see, if I had put the title, and it's interesting because this tribe, we never get this many thumbs down, but I knew this was going to happen, because this assaults the core cognitive image of what people think divine means. You see, we think that somehow sexuality cannot be a part of spirituality and cannot be a part of the divine, because we're told that sexuality is debased. It's of the physical. Again, that's false indoctrination, and it's hindered our species. We can't handle it. See, I'm glad. Who was that? Let me just get a second. I love this. This is a good group to talk about this. And I listen, I know it is like really, taboo. But I think that we have got to begin to relook at ourselves. We can't say we're inclusive when we're exclusive, where it says, well, everything is cool except where my spiritual beliefs are concerned. You can't bring that shit in my house, man. I'm just telling you right now, I can't handle it. Well, okay. I thought you were an open-minded type. I am, but you have to understand, I've got boundaries. I dig it. I've been there. But it's hard to accept. When you think about angelics, now I question why angelics even have genitalia to begin with. Doesn't make any sense. Why would an angel or a demon need a penis or a vagina? What would be the purpose for it? I mean, seriously, let's be honest. Let's have an adult conversation about religious, spiritual beliefs of the other side. Do you think that when you pass over the other side, that if you have a vagina, you're going to lose it over there? How about you guys? You think you're going to still swing it over there? Oh, are we knocking over some sacred cows today? Yeah. And we don't like to talk about sex, because, that's one of those things, Wayne, where, it's the individual, no, it's everywhere in society today. Has been. I mean, you think about it, we have a difficult time dealing with the pigment of a person's skin color, but you bring their sexual preferences into the play. OMG. Now you're going to bring sex into it. Why not? I mean, it's really a question, so And listen, I discussed this with my wife, and she said, "Oh, Wayne, you are going to be stepping on so many toes." So, over in the land of the living, the true land, this is the land of the dead. So, is sex only allowed in the land of the dead? Is there not going to be sex over in the land of the living? What? You don't think you're going to have sex in heaven? Well, people will say, well, what would be the purpose? Orgasm. I mean, we all like them. And if they're so cool here, why wouldn't they be cool over there? And if you're the mind struck that you're going to go to hell, well, you don't think there's going to be some screwing going on down there? Pfft, I mean, seriously, it's like Mardi Gras and, you know, I could think of a place I'll hear it in a minute, but yeah, it's, you see how conditioned we are? Even us so-called enlightened, we still get uncomfortable about this. Well, I'm going to tell you what, if you're uncomfortable about your sexuality and that the fact that sexuality plays a major role in spirituality, I don't know what the hell you're going to. So what you're saying, you want to become androgynous over in the spirit realm or in the land of the living. You don't want to have the girls anymore. And I know many of you women are proud of those girls. And you guys, you love to talk about the stories of how, yeah. Mm-hmm. So what, is that just cut out over there? Is that what you're saying? You see how limited, how uh this is Elizabethan type of thinking. It permeates the United States culture because that Elizabethan type of restrictions, it was where, you never wanted to talk about sex, but everyone did it. Everyone does it. Even God does it. The gods have sex. I mean, if you look at the representation, they have lots of sex. And apparently, if you look at Solomon, and here's a secret for all of you who keep asking me about Solomon's magic, it was sex. Don't you get it? If the man, in fact, had 300 wives and nearly 700 concubines, are you getting it? Why do you think there are temple prostitutes? Sex. And so if the creator of all things, wouldn't it make sense that it created sex? All kinds of sex? I would think so. But over the years, we have come down to where we think, again, through religious indoctrination, and unfortunately, this goes over into humanism as well. I mean, we have been so conditioned that we really don't even understand what sex is. Sex is one of the most powerful magic. If you grasp it, it's not just for coitus or reproduction. There's something else there. And it was a reason why it has been forbidden to the masses of knowing and understanding. But folks, you can't say that God isn't gay. I believe God is as gay as anyone. I think he invented it. He created it. Why wouldn't he? If being gay is an original creation of thought, then there's another God running around. I mean, does it not say that there's nothing new under the sun that's not known to man or God? That hasn't been? I mean, come on, folks. I'm just reading some of the things. So, yeah, it's one of those things that it amazes me because we've allowed the controllers to take the power out of this mystical element. I guess I'll use that word. And it's not about sex. That's just it. That is just like Your car, you buy your car because of what the outside looks, and then you like the inside. You're never really interested, well, some of us are, in what the engine is. You see, sex is just merely kind of the key that turns the engine on. But most people have no understanding of what the engine actually does, because their basis, their perspective, have only been taught about gas, go, brake, stop. Good, bad, good, bad. And if I have this thought in the, the traditional thought of a relationship, then it's good. But if I go outside, fornication, stop, that's bad. And the engine, in the meantime, you want to know why it's so messed up. Okay. Shannon says, so many comments, I can't keep up. Listen, I knew this would be controversial, but I respect this group here. I believe this group is a spiritual mature group. I believe we are all intellectuals. And I believe that we're also mature enough to have a mature conversation about some of these things that are so taboo. I don't see what the problem is in saying that God is gay. Because what you're saying, if you got a problem with that, then what you're saying is gay is a sin. Let's be honest. And if you're that bigoted, you need help. Because that's exactly what you're saying. That's the only reason why the thumbs down are here. Because those can't handle, they equate gayness with sinfulness. You see how it works? Let's be honest. And it impacts everything else. Yeah, justice for all. We are trapped in this world of duality. I'm just trying to bring out, and I know we won't probably deal on this too much more, but that's what's going on here. That's why the title is, because I knew this. I knew that those who couldn't handle it would immediately associate the word gay with sin. We just found you out. So, well, thank you, Anastasia. That's very kind of you. I appreciate that. And I do it in love. I mean, it's the idea that, if you really do believe in the all, the source, the creator, it's everything. It's a murderer. It's a giver of life. I mean, it's everything. Because if you're saying that its creations began to bring in new creative thoughts and brought these things into existence, well, then that really gets into a whole new level. What's really going on here? Which, oddly enough, brings me into a topic about the Nephilim. Now, there is, I want to show you this PDF, and it's an interesting read. It says, were the Nephilim genetically psychopathic? They're psychopaths, no doubt. And if you read the story, now this is an interesting painting. If you look at this, I'll tell you what's happened here. The male is dead. The giant has basically busted its skull and it's laying here on the rocks. They were hiding in this cave, and now the giant, well, let your imaginations run wild as to what happened. But we've got a problem here. So we got to look at this from a logical, let's just look at this thing from a more physiological point. I don't believe that a woman's vagina could expand large enough to receive the male organ, that there would be copulation involved here. I just don't see that possible. So, and this paper addresses that as well. It's like, all right, we know that the giants were here. I'm going to show you some of the pictures, and over in China now, they have found a field of them. And to let you know, This is a great book to all you buffs. This is the Nephilim Chronicles. It is a fantastic research book, college level, but I can tell you this. North America was the home of the giants, which would be the offspring of the Nephilim. Now, in here, it is said, according to the book of Genesis, that the Nephilim were said to be a race or a group that had distinct physical characteristics of large size and great strength. They are first mentioned in Genesis chapter 6 as the progeny of the sons of God and the daughters of men. Although the physiological characteristics of the Nephilim are not specifically described in the Bible, but where did we get good one? When we did the series on King Og, one of the last Nephilim, not the last giant, probably the last Nephilim. They are generally pictured to be very tall, proud, belligerent, sexually aggressive, and prone to conflict. Now, this is interesting because if you think about this, these fallen angels is what we're talking about here, the watchers. The first thing that they went for was apparently to start having sex with not just humans, women and men, but they also were heavily into bestiality, which brings into a whole new thing of what these hybrids were. Yeah. This paper explores the possibility that the Nephilim were genetically psychopathic as an explanation for their behavior, and possibly for how the wickedness of man could have become so epidemic, causing God to respond with the flood. That's religious. You have to take the religion out of this. The story is interesting, though, because if you read the story in the book of Enoch, we know that these watchers, there were 200 of them, all male, that they made a pact, and they, according to the story, and you have to see how this has been synthesized as a control mechanism. So the story goes that they stole the secrets from heaven. They didn't get the big ones, but they got a lot of them. And as the story goes in the book of Enoch, it said that they were, in fact, the ones who taught men how to war, taught them agriculture, taught them, metallurgy, taught women how to adorn themselves, makeup. Yeah, the whole bit. And if you read the book of Enoch, apparently the first group, the first offspring, they were huge. I don't know how it comes, but they get into this because when you begin to think about this, how this story goes, something happened. Now, this author, he proposes that these watchers, these 200 fallen spirits, were in fact spirits, but had the ability to somehow inseminate females. Now that brings on a whole question in my mind going, all right, so are you telling me that these angelic beings have sperm? Maybe they masturbate. I mean, I don't know, but how would they have sperm? Because what would be the purpose for an angelic being to have semen? And then how did this semen, once inseminated inside a woman, how did the DNA take? Would she not have most likely miscarried as opposed to giving full birth to something that apparently, once it came out of the cervix, grew rapidly? They have a medical condition called gargantuism for that. But nevertheless, in here, let me just stop here. I want to show you what I mean. So, who were these beings? This is the lore. You can see where the story of David and Goliath came from. The Mesopotamians, that whole thing. The word Nephilim means the fallen ones. We've got Josephus that writes about them. We have the Greeks that write about them. We have the Romans, the Egyptians. They were here. I contend, and it's just my theory, that we're missing about 10,000 years of actual history. I believe that there was a time when both human, dinosaur, and giants coexisted on this planet at the same time. I believe it was the giants that ruled mankind until something intervened. But again, we get the story, Book of Enoch, we get pieces of it out of the fake X3 skulls. I mean, the reason why I say fake, because folks, when you only get a little piece and you start making a whole chapter out of it, I ain't buying it. It's not that they don't exist. Here is the Book of Enoch, where it talks about these beings. This God that most people think is God, you get to really understand this dude. He's not happy. It said, "Thou shalt scribe of righteousness go and declare to the watchers of the heaven who have left the high heaven, the holy eternal place, and have defiled themselves with women." So that means having sexual intercourse is now associated with filthiness. Yeah. And have done as the children of earth do, and have taken unto themselves wives. Now, here's a real interesting question. How would an angel know what a wife was? Because if you look back in this whole thing, the concept of a wife may have not even come in yet. But anyway, it goes on to say that you have wrought great destruction on the earth, contaminated the bloodline, and you shall have no peace nor forgiveness of sin. So now we're associating, now you can see how gay, sex, lesbianism, the whole bit, sin. And inasmuch as they delight themselves in their children, the murder of their beloved ones shall they see, and over the destruction of their children shall they lament, and shall make supplication unto eternity, but mercy and peace shall not be attained. This is your loving God, Christians. Whoa. And Uriel said to me, here shall stand the angels who have connected themselves with women. Are you seeing the pattern? And their spirits, assuming many different forms, are defiling mankind and shall lead them astray into sacrificing to demons as God. Now, this is a real interesting passage, because if you take this over into the occult, it's very revealing. It says their spirits are assuming many different forms. These are shapeshifters. Most likely a reptilian. And defiling mankind, that's polluting, desecrating. And look at this, to begin to sacrifice to demons as gods. Well, see, now this is really interesting, because they did not put this into the King James Bible. They removed the demon. Well, they didn't even put the Book of Enoch in there, number one. But you see, this is making reference that the fact that demons probably existed way before even the garden came around. This gets weird. Here shall they stand till the judgment day of the great judgment, in which they shall be judged till they are made of an end. So this is speaking of a second death. We're talking about spiritual beings already. And so when you talk to them about death, they've never experienced a physical death. But their spiritual death is far worse than any physical death. And the women who bound themselves with the fallen angel shall become sirens, ancient seducing spirits in the ages of earth. Well, this is now giving entrance to the inflooding of a race of beings that were never created by God. Now, it's interesting as well that, take note, these are spirits. These are not physical beings. These are spirit beings. So the book of Enoch, the book of Jasher, if you've never read the book of Jasher, you should read the book of Enoch. It's good. It really is. The book of Jubilees tells a very detailed account of what was going on in Genesis chapter 6, and they all sync up with each other. So we know that there is some synchronicity in the understanding that these beings did exist. Even the trader Josephus wrote, there were giants on the earth in those days. What days are he referencing to? What's he speaking about? Can you tell me any manual? I read one. Boy, people didn't like the story of King Og, but you see, that's because they're blinded. They don't realize that when they were fashioning the church, they knew about this. They knew that there was a reign. I suspected it's about 10,000 years, but they deliberately removed it from history. But the problem is, when you start removing history, history has a way of biting you in the ass. Now, I know that the Nephilim existed. I had a client, the Smithsonian Institution. They were a client of mine back in the days when I was in the video industry. Got to know the curator very well. I saw the two encasements of giants standing 17 feet tall. About what they're finding over there. It says, for which reason they removed their camp to Hebron, and when they had taken it, they slew all the inhabitants. They were eating us. They were till then left a race of giants who had bodies so large and countenances so entirely different from men that they were terrible to the hearing. The bones of these men are still shown to this very day, unlike to any credible relations of other men. I went through this book, if those of you go back in the archives. And we can see it now even in the DNA. Yes, it's in our DNA. If this is if you follow the story from a genetic point of view, we have alien DNA in us. And I call alien these things that we call angels, these watchers, whatever you want to reference them. They're off-worlders. And now their offspring, we don't know how many of them are here. These are most likely the jinn, most likely potentially the shadow people. All of them have their origins. And the thing about it is, they injected their alien DNA into our bloodlines. The first generation of the human hybrids were extremely powerful magicians. They were, and for all intents and purposes, gods. Now, what's interesting is that because when we begin to look at the evidence, we know the first pharaohs were giants. And this brings in a whole question then, what happened to this history? And more importantly, what did it do to our species? I've come to some conclusions that the Homo sapiens were the ones first infected. When sapiens sapiens made the evolutionary jump, we brought that alien DNA with us. It's most likely responsible for what we would call the negative attributes of our personality. Because remember, we were hermaphrodites, we were bound in one. Most super beings, we were super gods. Why? Because we contain the essence of both. It's when we're separated that we become weak. And that separation has been the focal point to prevent humanity from ever coming back together again. But anyway, they're everywhere. And again, you look at this, these are the beings that, well, if they were as aggressive as what they're saying they were, and they are here, I want to really get to where I want to go. There's a footprint of one. They did exist. Imagine these beings as rulers. I have a feeling they were not benevolent to human beings. They got hungry. They ate us. And now they have found what is probably the largest field of the Nephilim around. So anyway, I told you this was going to be interesting. So we're really talking about the whole theme of these things, of all these stories, and what is the bottom line to all this? It's the sexuality. It's the combining of energies, producing new energies. In the book of Enoch, God said, I did not create these bastards, quote unquote. Okay. Now this gets really interesting. So if this is what the Abrahamic God said, that he didn't create these things, stop and think about this, then who did create them? Was it the angels? Or was it the humans? Was it the gods? You see, we may have thought that the story goes that we saw them as gods. The trick was they tricked us. We're the only ones apparently that have the ability to create life. If you read the story. Not saying it is, I'm just going along with the story. Well, that then means that we have the ability to create more than what we have ever imagined. It means that we have the ability to create spirits. Imagine this. We have the ability of the gods. We can do something that these angels can't do. Now look at the disaster, what happens when you mix alien DNA with the DNA of a god or a goddess. The feminine is, in fact, the true victim here. She is the one that originally ruled. But you can see what happens when you bring the maleness, which I would call the gayness, into the scene. And so now we end up the theme with the way it goes. Well, thank you for hitting the like button. And listen, the folks that hit the down button, it's all right. It's cool. I get it. Probably one of the few videos on YouTube that really came out with the balls to come out and say that God is gay. But by all evidence, I believe that God is gay. I do. Believe he's bisexual as well, if it's a he. I mean, why wouldn't it be? I mean, seriously. Because all the gods throughout the world that have been worshipped, what is the thing that they worship the most? The vagina. I mean, oops. Weren't supposed to say that. All right. So much for a grand Wednesday. That's true, Jenny. It's true. Hello, Bertley from Houston. How are you? So, yeah. Folks, I know, again, it's taboo, but I believe it's so important that it is probably one of the most important aspects that is ignored. It's ignored in the, the New Age. It's ignored in metaphysics. It's amazing because this sexuality thing is always like, well, we're really uncomfortable talking about this. Thank you, Lost in Space. Appreciate that. But thank you, Jack Dreamin. Appreciate that. Indeed. Man wrote the Bible in his image. Gina, that is exactly right. Hey, Trina, how are you, dear? So let's see. John says, yeah. Well, thank you, Red Honey 9. Yeah, I appreciate that. So we got this gap in history. We're going to be talking more about it because this gap in history, I believe, is probably one of the most critical pieces that have been eliminated from modern history. The period of when the Nephilim, the giants, ruled the planet. And, you think about this. It depends on how old you think man is. I mean, if you go by, the genealogy of, the black book, the Bible, you're led to believe in this fallacy that, well, it's less than 5,000 years. But what about Genesis 1:26? What about those people? We don't know how long they were here. So anyway, thank you all. I appreciate it. Read the book of Enoch for yourself. Yes, John, you are absolutely right. And learn. Yeah, it's an interesting, again, take out the religious connotation and just, sift it like you're sifting gold. You'll get a nugget or two. Trust it. Dan Winters, yeah, that's a good one. You're welcome. So God's an asshole, man in his image. Red Honey, you're absolutely right. I do love all of y'all. John Price, I happen to agree with you. I think we still rule the planet. I really do. And I think the other side, the land of the living, I think they have distorted it completely across the board. I don't know. I could be wrong, but I think everybody likes sex. I mean, maybe I'm wrong on that. I think that the vast majority of humanity finds it to be really far out. So I don't know. Like we just keep on pushing through. That's it. Jesus would. That's interesting. Okay. Thank you, Martin Heidi. How about the animal kingdom? Well, it's really interesting that this is, they say that the story, particularly in the Greek anthology, that the satyrs, and all the rest of these half-breed animals, part human, part animal. The story goes, and we'll cover this in one of the books I have. It gives a detailed in the history that they were sought out and hunted down to extinction. That men of that day feared them so much that they were more intelligent. They apparently had many of the mystical aspects that we see with Bigfoot, for instance. I'm not saying Bigfoot is by any means. I think that is a completely different species. But it may be Bigfoot is, in fact, remnants of the Nephilim. Who knows? But anyway, well, Vex, you just unsubscribe. That's fine. That's fine. Because if you see this as blasphemy, that is your world, not mine. And, been a pleasure having you, but I wish you well and favor on your journey. Because it is not offensive and it's not disgusting. Again, you are the one that I am pointing out to. You equate gayness with sin. You equate gay to being filth. Now that's bigoted. I'll just lay it out for you. And you claim to be a Christian? You mock the very God that you say you're defending. Bring that crap around here. Yeah, I'll put you in your place in a second. Again, You see what happens? That's what I'm talking about. It's so ingrained in so many people. And if we can't get over one word, then I don't know how much hope there is for humanity on a whole. Whew. We're just trying to work this crazy stuff out. Ain't that the truth? Yeah, it's true. And again, I knew that the title, but I think this is something that should be discussed and it should be thought about. It should be thought about in your time. I'm sure you've thought about it. Who doesn't? It's amazing. People think that the white robes, that, what's underneath there, that, the TNA is gone and, everything else. I don't see that. Troy. And if I stepped on your toes, well, bring them over here and I'll lay my hands on it and we'll heal them. But anyway, so thank you all. I appreciate your open-mindedness. Whether you love me or hate me, it's okay. This is a place where the taboo will be discussed, and we do it in a respectful and a dignified manner, but it affects who humanity is. What is humanity? If our sexuality is excluded from our spirituality, then we'll never be complete. That's all I have to say about that. Have yourself a great day. Tune into Nina's program. Thank you, Robert V. Much love to you, brother. And I will see y'all tomorrow. All right. Much love to you all.